Hey guys, what's up? Josie back here again, and we have some breaking news. The Vikings have traded a fifth-round pick from next year for former Ravens special teams ace Kaare Vedvik. Kaare Vedvik is here in Minnesota, and I say special teams ace because we do not know what he's going to be yet. We'll talk about this later, but first and foremost, let's talk about his value. The Vikings traded a fifth-round pick for him, and I think that speaks more to how coveted Vedvik is rather than the Vikings overspending for this prospect, right? Because there were rumored to have four other teams. One of them 100% had to have been the Bears. And the offers weren't just a seventh round pick and the Vikings said, alright, so we'll go with five. No, it was 6 round picks and the Vikings had to up the ante and go five. So there are other teams that thought very highly of him as well. Because if the Ravens just wanted some value out of a backup kicker / punter, they would take a 7. But there were other teams that upped it enough where the Vikings had to go to a 5, and that's how we picked him up. So the value is there, not just by the thoughts of the Vikings scouting department, by a handful of others. So I think the Vikings should be in good luck here. Hopefully it's not another Daniel Carlson, because this makes a ton of special teams draft capital the Vikings have invested in the last couple of years, ever since Blair Walsh. Yeah, Walsh, you got Carlson, you got even Cutting, who we'll talk about later. And now we have Vedvik, who is on the team, and what will he be? So let's talk about that. Alright, so what's fun about Vedvik? He's not just a kicker, he's not just a punter, he can do both. So, who's on the hot seat? The Vikings still have Matt Wile, Dan Bailey on the roster. So we have those two. Vedvik's the only one out of this new trio of kickers, people that use their legs to get their money, to get their paychecks on the team, and only Vedvik's guaranteed a contract for the 2019 season. So who's the odd man out? You're not going to keep all three. So let's look at option A. The Vikings could cut Matt Wile, make Vedvik the punter. Now this one is probably the least, popular among the fan base. I would not think a 5th-round pick for a punter, let alone Matt Wile, who I thought was fine, is worth it. So this one would make the least amount of sense right off the bat. But the option here is that he can still kick. So we have that backup with Dan Bailey. If he gets hurt, we could have Vedvik do both for a little bit, or if we want him to do the long kicks, if Dan Bailey continues to struggle in those in practice, we could have Vedvik be the long kicker. These have some troubles, we'll get to them later, but he has some possibilities of doing that to get some more value that's worth a 5th-round pick out of Vedvik if he's just going to be the punter. Obviously, moving to option B, we cut Dan Bailey, and Vedvik is the new full-time kicker. 5th-round pick for the kicker, I think, is great value if he works out, and that is the obvious if in this situation. But if he works out, then he is such a huge asset, especially to the Vikings that have been plagued for kickers ever since the Blair Walsh fiasco. So I think if he comes through, is accurate, can kick deep, and can boot the ball out of the end zone on kickoffs, it'd be great. And if he's basically rookie year Blair Walsh all the time, yes, absolutely worth every penny or every ounce of talent you can squeeze out of that 5th-round pick. So I think he'd be great. And why would the Vikings want to move on from Dan Bailey? Well, obviously he was inconsistent last year. He's no longer the second most accurate kicker of all time. He shows his age, his injuries. Look like his leg strength wasn't there, and it looks like that's continued in practice. As you see, the most notably, he struggles to kick the ball out of the end zone, and that's something that modern day kickers should just do on routine. So he does not have that part. He looked like, the last couple of years of Ryan Longwell out there, and the Vikings obviously wanted a replacement there. And on kicks. He's just so inconsistent. Yeah, sure, banging the PATs, but anything over 40 yards, it's always kind of a flip of the coin on those. So if we get Vedvik to be more consistent and give you the option, maybe a 55-yard or maybe 58, he's been kicking 60-yard field goals in practice, so he opens up the field. If the offense staggers a little bit, Mike Zimmer will have a decision. Will he want to try to pin him back and do a little coffin corner punt at the 5-yard line, or try to get 3 points out of it? So we would have that option with Vedvik. So that would be option B. Option C is the prayer. This one most likely will not work. Most likely shouldn't work, but that is if the Vikings think that Vedvik could do both. Could be the starting kicker and the starting punter. The benefit of this is, holy cow, we have the best special teams ace since Cordell Patterson on the team, probably the best kicker that hits the football either on the punts or kicks in the NFL, if he can do both at a good level. And we get the extra roster spot, blasting game, welcome, you're on the 53. But that probably will not work. I've seen a post by Chris Cooley, former Vikings punter, that said the kicking motion, doing field goal kicks and punting is so different, and it's so taxing to practice it, that if you have to practice both throughout the week, your leg will basically just fall off. And so if the Vikings can plan around that, or Vedvik's just a superhuman, or he has some untraceable steroids, that probably is not a good choice. But the man does look like an athlete, so maybe he could swing it, but the history of that working is non-existent in the NFL. So that is an absolute wish, and most likely will not happen. The good benefit that he can do both is that if there's an injury, the Vikings would be okay, and he could come in and a kick or punt barring an injury, right? And talking about option A, if he does the long kicking for Dan Bailey, he still has to practice kicking, so that has similar drawbacks of option C. Maybe he doesn't have to practice as much, especially if it's just a situational thing, like, it's the end of the half, we're out of timeouts, there's 5 seconds remaining, Vedvik, try to hit a 60-yarder. Something like that. Maybe you don't have to practice a whole lot for. Maybe the warm-ups before the game's all he would need, but I even think that is unlikely. So the current reports is that he's just killing it in camp, but so is Dan Bailey. So I think the most likely situation is we'll get a little bit of A and B. I think this year it will cut Matt Wile. Vedvik will be our punter. Next year, we have Bailey will be gone, and the Vikings will have a whole nother situation. We'll probably get 2 more special teamers, or 2 more camp bodies in the offseason, whether we draft again, or we get undrafted free agents, or we pick someone up in free agency to be a kicker and a punter, and we have another 3-way go at it, and we have Vedvik, who will presumably, as long as he had a good season this year, be the front runner. He will be on the roster. Will he be a punter or kicker for 2020? It'd be another question, right? I think presumably the Vikings would love him to be the kicker. Like I said, that'd be more worth the 5th round pick. But if he doesn't, that's okay. Janikowski, or there's good punters out there that are worth money, especially when you have a really good defense. Pinning them back after 5 to 10 yards is a good asset to have on the team. But if he could be a punter this year, then presumably be the long-time kicker once Dan Bailey presumably retires after this year. And then I think it's a really good choice, and something that Matt Wile struggled at seamlessly. It's hard to really see from a fan's view, but his holding had to have been some concern for the Vikings. Even in practice already, our boy BB has been holding for the Vikings. The guy that holds it for the kicks is Chad Beebe as of right now. Matt Wile is nursing a little injury, so if Chad Beebe wins that, it proves that he's as good for Matt Wile, who already got cut himself in the preseason game. Might be a little preemptive of what's going to happen to him in the near future. I think we could have a situation where we have Chad Beebe being the new holder, and if that works out, we need to get that all in and fixed. But moving on, we have our long snapper Kevin McDermott got cut. Austin Cutting won the camp battle. The number one first camp battle victory goes to Austin Cutting. So basically, this was going to happen ever since Cutting was eligible to play, ever since he didn't have to serve the country. So now that we have Cutting, we no longer have to have our kicking unit go through this this rotation of Cutting and McDermott just to screw up with the holders, and we get more consistency there. The consistency is key. We need it in our special teams unit. It sucks for McDermott. He lost a finger this last season, literally lost a finger. Played the rest of the season, never missed a snap, and now he got repaid by getting cut. So that sucks, but that's also kind of the business. I don't know. One thing nobody's ever talked about, I don't think, is how much losing a fingertip could play a role in his snap decline. I don't know how much of a factor that would be, but I could see that being one of those factors, or that's a borderline career injury for a guy that has to be 100% accurate 100% of the time. So I could see that messing with him, but hopefully he gets another chance elsewhere. I've never heard any other team looking for a long snapper. Hopefully he doesn't go to the Bears and solve their kicking issues. Now Cutting's in the building. He has a little bit more velocity. He's supposed to be a little bit more accurate, which accuracy for long snappers, the difference between here and here, you have that about inch difference is all it takes for it to be considered a bad snap. And so hopefully Cutting can give me more of that perfectness and give the kicker a little less to worry about, and hopefully whether it's Bailey or Vedvik, they can improve this next season. But Vedvik's in the house, McDermott is out of the house. So give me your thoughts in the comment section down below, and obviously where do we want Vedvik to be? What do you think he will be for the 2019 season? I will poll in the top right icon in the top right of this video. So vote there or comment in the comment section down below. Otherwise, we'll see you guys in the next JLZ Vikings video. See you guys then.